It was supposed to be a simple weekend escape, just a quiet camping trip between a young girl and her grandpa deep in the mountains near the edge of a peaceful lake. The two had done it before, always returning with stories of fishing, hiking, and sitting around the fire, but this time they never came back. Their truck was later found abandoned near a remote trailhead, and their tent was still pitched at the campsite untouched, like they had just stepped away for a walk. No signs of a struggle, no messages left behind. Just silence. Search teams combed the thick forest for weeks. Helicopters, dogs, volunteers, everyone hoped for a clue. But nothing turned up. Not a jacket, not a footprint. It was like the forest swallowed them whole. As the seasons passed, so did the attention. Locals shared rumors, some blamed wildlife. Others whispered about the nearby dam and the sharp drop-offs beneath the spillway. But there was no proof. The case went cold. Then, 7 years later, during a routine inspection of the dam spillway after a major storm, a maintenance worker spotted something wedged deep in the concrete drainage, something that didn't belong. When they pulled it out, it wasn't just debris. What they found brought the investigation roaring back to life and raised more questions than answers. What really happened that night in the woods? And why did it take so long for anything to surface, ready to uncover the mystery? Let's begin. The worker who discovered the object thought it was just another log caught in the concrete teeth of the spillway. But as he got closer, he realized it was something metallic, twisted and rusted, but unmistakably part of a small camping stove. It was lodged deep in a narrow crevice, as if it had been dragged there by years of water flow. It didn't take long for the authorities to match the make and model to the same stove the missing grandfather had reportedly brought on that trip 7 years ago. The campsite gear list, filed away and nearly forgotten, was suddenly relevant. Again, investigators were baffled. How could a stove from their trip end up miles away, deep within the dam system? The terrain between the campsite and the spillway was rugged, unforgiving. No path connected the two. Locals began to speculate against them, claiming the river carried it during a flood. Others thinking it was planted to throw off the case. But why after all this time? As pressure mounted, new teams were brought in to re-interview family members and retrace the original route the pair might have taken. The girl, only 9 at the time, had just started learning how to hike on her own. Her grandpa, a seasoned camper and Vietnam vet, was known to be extra cautious in the wild. They weren't the type to get lost, so what went wrong? And more importantly, why did it feel like someone didn't want them to be found? Something wasn't adding up as the investigation reopened. Detectives began digging through old case files, witness statements, and GPS logs from nearby campers who had been in the area during that weekend. One name kept popping up: a solo hiker who'd been staying about 2 miles from the family's campsite. He was questioned at the time, but gave little information. Now, 7 years later, he couldn't be located. His driver's license had expired, and there were no signs of activity under his name. Some believed he had simply moved on. Others weren't so sure. Meanwhile, the girl's mother, who had fought for years to keep the case alive, started speaking to the media again. She never believed it was just a tragic accident. Her father knew that forest better than anyone. She remembered the stories he used to tell about old mining shafts hidden in the hills, and the strange sounds he sometimes heard near the dam at night. Everyone brushed it off back then, but now those stories seemed harder to ignore. Todd Park rangers also came forward, admitting there were areas near the spillway they avoided, zones where GPS signals dropped and compasses spun oddly. No official reports had ever been filed. But whispers about the dead zone near the dam had become local legend. What if the two weren't alone that night? What if someone or something had been watching? As more questions surfaced and more people got involved, one thing became clear: This wasn't just about a missing girl and her grandpa anymore. It was about what had been buried both by water and by time. The search around the dam intensified. A dive team was brought in to scan the spillway's lower basin with sonar. What they found next sent chills through the crew. Buried under layers of silt was something large, oddly shaped, metallic in some places, but with sharp, jagged edges that didn't match any natural rock formation. When a section was pulled free, it revealed a crushed corner of a green cooler, the same model listed in the missing persons report from 7 years ago. It was now undeniable. More of their gear had ended up here. But how? Tension spread quickly among the team. Some believed a rock slide had pushed everything down. Others suggested the gear had been intentionally moved. But by who and why? The dam had always been secure, monitored, maintained. There were no easy answers. That's when a park ranger found something wedged between two large rocks along the edge of the water, a small pink whistle. Weathered by time, but unmistakably a child's. The girl's mother confirmed it. Was her daughter's. The same one she wore around her neck for safety on every hike. The mood shifted. This wasn't just evidence. This was personal. Behind the scenes, a whistleblower stepped forward, an old contractor who once worked on the dam's foundation. He claimed a hidden access shaft had been sealed off decades ago after a worker vanished during maintenance. No one followed up, no search was conducted, and no records were kept. The question now wasn't just where they disappeared. It was, who wanted it kept quiet? 2 days after the whistleblower came forward, engineers uncovered a rusted, padlocked panel half buried behind brush at the far end of the dam service road. It matched the rough location of the sealed access shaft he described. The panel hadn't been touched in years, maybe decades. When it was finally forced open, what lay beyond was a narrow concrete tunnel, steep and dripping with moisture. The air was stale, and old boot prints were frozen in dried mud. But what caught everyone's attention was the broken flashlight found just a few steps in. It had initials scratched into the handle, GL. The grandfather's dot as the search team pressed forward. They found remnants of a makeshift camp deep inside the tunnel-torn fabric. Rusted cans and what looked like a child's drawing scrawled on a damp scrap of paper. A crude stick figure held hands with a taller one beneath what looked like a jagged hill. Below it, one word was shakily written: help. Panic and confusion took over. If they made it this far, why didn't they come out? But just as the team prepared to continue deeper into the tunnel, federal agents unexpectedly arrived, ordering everyone to stop. The site was now being treated as restricted due to structural risks. Cameras were shut off, drones grounded. Even the girl's mother was escorted away. Whispers spread fast. Was this really about safety, or was something being hidden? The truth felt closer than ever. But suddenly, someone was trying to bury it all again. The story might have ended. They're shut down, sealed off, buried like the shaft itself. But the girl's mother refused to let go. She filed a legal injunction and, with growing media attention, forced the authorities to reopen the tunnel under civilian oversight. Within days, a specialized team returned to where the drawing had been found and pushed deeper inside. What they discovered changed everything. Near the end of the tunnel, behind a collapsed section of rock, they uncovered a narrow cavity. Inside it were the skeletal remains of 2 people, huddled together, one adult, one child. Beside them was the girl's small backpack, still zipped, and a worn notebook filled with entries written in shaky handwriting. The final page read, "Tried to climb out. He said, stay put. He never came back. I waited." DNA later confirmed the remains belonged to the missing grandfather and granddaughter. The tragic truth: a sudden cave-in trapped them inside while searching for a way out. They were alive for days, possibly longer. The old tunnel had been forgotten, undocumented in modern blueprints, and no one had thought to search that deep. The flashlight, the whistle. To Cooler, they were pieces of a desperate fight to survive. But just as the family began grieving with closure, another twist emerged. The notebook included a short note scribbled in the margin. He said not to trust the man in the uniform. He locked the door behind us. Someone knew they were down there. And someone made sure they never got out. The notebook's final note changed everything. Investigators reopened the case, this time treating it as a possible criminal cover-up. Old employment records from the dam project were pulled, and one name stood out: former security contractor who abruptly left the job just days after the grandfather and girl vanished. He had access to restricted areas and was one of the few with keys to the older tunnel system. But by the time authorities tracked him down, he'd passed away years earlier under suspicious circumstances in another state, though he could no longer face justice. The evidence told a grim story. It's believed he may have confronted the grandfather after they accidentally wandered too close to something he was trying to hide, possibly illegal dumping or unauthorized activity near the dam site. Rather than risk exposure, he locked them in and walked away. The community mourned, not just for the loss, but for the years the family was denied the truth. The girl's mother, though devastated, finally had the answers she had begged.